The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Aurelia, turning the city lights outside into bleeding watercolors of amber and red. I pressed my palm against the cold glass, watching droplets race downward like tears I couldn't afford to shed. My reflection stared back, hollow cheeks, dark circles beneath green eyes that once sparkled with dreams now long extinguished. The black dress I wore, borrowed from my roommate Clara, hung loose on my frame. 3 months of rationing meals to pay rent had carved away any softness I once possessed. "Table 7 needs water," Marcus, the floor manager, snapped as he breezed past, not bothering to look at me. I was invisible here, just another struggling waitress in a city that chewed up girls like me and spat them out without ceremony. I grabbed the crystal pitcher, its weight familiar in my trembling hands. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversations, the clink of silverware against fine china, the occasional burst of laughter from patrons who'd never known what it meant to choose between electricity and groceries. Aurelia catered to a specific clientele: politicians, old money families, and people whose names you didn't speak above a whisper. Table 7 sat in the corner booth, partially hidden behind an ornate silk screen painted with golden phoenixes. I'd been told to stay away from that section tonight. "Reserved for someone important," Marcus had said, his voice tight with nervousness I'd never heard before. But water was water, and tips were tips. I rounded the screen, my worn heels clicking against marble floors, and froze. The booth was empty except for one man. He sat with his back to the wall, exactly the kind of positioning that sent prickles down my spine, even before I registered anything else about him. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, lips pressed into a line that suggested he smiled rarely, if ever. He couldn't have been older than 32, maybe 33. But something ancient lived behind those eyes. Coal-black eyes that found mine the moment I appeared, pinning me in place like a butterfly to a board. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Crisp white shirt open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of ink that disappeared beneath the fabric. A Patek Philippe watch caught the light at his wrist. Everything about him screamed power, money, danger. 2 men flanked the booth's entrance, massive, silent, their hands clasped in front of them in that universal stance of hired muscle. They hadn't been there when I started my approach. How had I missed them? I'm sorry, I stammered, already backing away. I didn't know. Water. His voice cut through my panic, smooth as aged whiskey but cold enough to freeze. He didn't ask. Simply stated it like facts were his native language. "You brought it. Pour it." My hands shook as I stepped forward. The 2 guards watched me with the intensity of predators assessing potential threat. I was 5'4", and probably weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. Threat level, 0. Still, they watched. I leaned forward to fill his glass, hyper-aware of how close I had to get, how the borrowed dress dipped lower than I'd realized when I bent down. The scent of him hit me, expensive cologne, something woody and dark with undertones of leather and smoke. Beneath it, something else. Gunpowder? My imagination had to be running wild. The water splashed into the crystal, too loud in the sudden silence. A droplet escaped, landing on the pristine white tablecloth. I watched it spread, horrified, as the man's gaze followed the water's path. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, grabbing for the napkin to blot the stain. "I'll get you a new..." His hand caught my wrist, not roughly, almost gently. But the grip was steel, stopping me mid-motion. Heat radiated from his palm, burning through my skin despite the ice in his demeanor. I looked up, trapped, and found him studying my face like I was a puzzle he intended to solve through sheer force of will. "You're shaking," he observed, his thumb pressing against my pulse point where it hammered frantically. "Why?" Nervous, I managed. This section is off limits?" The corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. "And yet, here you are. Marcus said table 7 needed water. I didn't know." I tried to pull back. His grip tightened infinitesimally, just enough to remind me I wasn't going anywhere until he decided to let me go. "What's your name?" He released me as suddenly as he'd grabbed me, leaving my wrist burning where he'd touched. I stumbled back a step, cradling my arm against my chest. Emma Hartley. Emma. He tasted my name like expensive wine, rolling it around before deciding whether to swallow or spit. You work here long? 4 months. Why was I answering? Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet stayed planted, roots digging into marble. I should go. Your guest. There is no guest. He leaned back, and the movement revealed the gun holstered beneath his jacket. My breath caught. He noticed, of course he noticed, and his expression darkened with something almost like amusement. I'm dining alone tonight. Sit. It wasn't a request. I can't. I'm working, I'll lose my job. Sit. Down. 2 words that carried the weight of absolute authority. The kind of voice that had ordered worse things than a waitress to take a seat. I sat. The leather booth creaked beneath me, expensive and butter soft. This close, I could see the details I'd missed from a distance, the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his eyes tracked every tiny movement I made, cataloging, memorizing. You're afraid of me, he stated. Should I be? Yes. No hesitation, no false comfort, just brutal honesty that made my stomach clench. But not tonight. Tonight you're safe. That's not particularly reassuring, I heard myself say, and immediately wanted to swallow the words back. You didn't sass men who wore guns to dinner. But he laughed, actually laughed, a low rumble that transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. No, I suppose it isn't. He gestured to one of the guards, a subtle movement of 2 fingers. Bring menus. 2. Really, I can't. When did you last eat? He cut me off, those black eyes seeing too much, reading the truth written in my gaunt cheeks and the way my uniform hung loose. A real meal. Not whatever scraps you steal from the kitchen when no one's watching. Heat flooded my face. Don't lie to me, Emma. The temperature in his voice dropped 20 degrees. I can have you fired with a single phone call. Or I can feed you. Choose. It shouldn't have been a choice. Pride should have made me stand up, walk away. Consequences be damned, but pride didn't fill empty stomachs or pay rent. And I'd learned years ago that survival mattered more than dignity. Why? I asked instead, hating how small my voice sounded. Because I want to. He accepted the menus from the guard without looking away from me. That's reason enough. We ordered. Or rather, he ordered. Things I couldn't pronounce. Dishes that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. I should have protested. Should have asked for something cheap, but the words died in my throat every time I tried to speak them. He orchestrated everything with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to having the world rearrange itself to his preferences. The food arrived. Seared scallops that melted on my tongue. Risotto so creamy I nearly wept. Beef that dissolved like butter. I tried to eat slowly, to maintain some semblance of composure, but hunger won. I devoured everything, and he watched with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead felt almost protective? No, that was insane. Men like him weren't protective, they were dangerous. Better? He asked when I finally set down my fork, the question surprisingly gentle. Yes, thank you, I meant it. I should probably... You're not going anywhere. He checked his watch, a casual gesture that somehow felt threatening. Your shift ends in 20 minutes. You'll wait here until then. How do you... I know everything about this restaurant, Emma, including your schedule, your bus route home, and the fact that you walk 3 blocks alone in the dark because you can't afford the fare all the way to your apartment. His expression hardened. That ends tonight. Fear spiked through the pleasant fullness in my stomach. What do you mean? I mean you'll accept a ride home. My driver will take you. I don't even know you. The protest sounded weak even to my own ears. Dante Moretti. He extended his hand across the table, a formal gesture that felt absurd given the circumstances. Now you know me. I stared at his outstretched hand. Dante Moretti. The name rang bells, distant alarm bells I couldn't quite place. Something I'd heard in whispered conversations, in news reports I'd half listened to while serving coffee at my morning diner job. Moretti. Oh God. The realization must have shown on my face because his expression shifted. That dangerous amusement returning. "You've heard of me." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. The Moretti family controlled half the city's underground. Drugs, weapons, protection rackets. They were the boogeyman parents invoked to scare children into staying away from dark alleys. And their youngest Don, the one who'd taken control after his father's death 3 years ago, was notorious for being twice as ruthless and 10 times more clever than the old guard. That man sat across from me, waiting for my reaction. "I should go," I whispered, sliding toward the edge of the booth. His hand caught mine on the table, large and warm, completely engulfing my smaller fingers. "Emma, breathe." I hadn't realized I'd stopped. Air rushed back into my lungs in a painful gasp. "Look at me." I did, helpless against the command in his voice. "I told you that you're safe tonight. I don't break my word. Ever. Do you understand?" "Why me?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "Why am I sitting here? Why are you—" Because the moment you walked around that screen, scared and shaking, trying so damn hard to be invisible, I knew. His thumb stroked across my knuckles, an absent gesture that sent electricity racing up my arm. "I knew you were going to change everything." "That's crazy," I breathed. "Yes," he agreed. "It is." Marcus appeared at the edge of our booth, his face pale and sweating despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. "Mr. Moretti, sir, I apologize for the interruption. The check." Dante didn't release my hand, didn't look away from my face. "And inform management that Miss Hartley will be leaving early tonight, with full pay." "Of course, sir. Right away." Marcus practically ran. "I don't understand what's happening," I said, the words tumbling out faster now, panic rising. "I came over to pour water, that's all. I should be clearing tables, not whatever this is." "This," Dante said, finally releasing my hand only to stand, buttoning his jacket in one fluid motion, "is the beginning of something inevitable." He gestured to his guards, who moved into flanking position immediately. Then he looked down at me, something dark and possessive flickering in those coal-black eyes. "Come. My driver is waiting. I haven't agreed. Emma." He leaned down, close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear, smell that intoxicating combination of cologne and danger. "You can walk out with me, safe and fed. Or you can take that bus alone through neighborhoods that are about to get significantly more dangerous. Your choice. But choose quickly." It wasn't really a choice at all. I stood on shaking legs, hyper-aware of how his hand settled on the small of my back, guiding me through the restaurant. Every eye in the place followed our procession. The infamous Dante Moretti and the nobody waitress. I could feel the weight of their stares, the speculation, the judgment. The night air hit me like a slap when we stepped outside. Rain had turned to mist, creating halos around street lamps. A black SUV waited at the curb, sleek and expensive, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. Another man stood by the rear door, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running down his left cheek. "This is Marco," Dante said. "My head of security. He'll drive you home tonight. And you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Something flickered in his expression, there and gone too fast to identify. "I have business to attend to, but Emma." He caught my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. The touch burned. "I'll be seeing you again. Very soon." It sounded like a promise and a threat wrapped into one. Marco opened the door, and I climbed inside, sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than my car, if I still had a car. Through the window, I watched Dante speak quietly with his other guards, his attention already shifted to whatever dangerous business called to him. Then, as if feeling my stare, he turned. Our eyes met through the glass, and he smiled. A real smile this time, transforming his face completely. It made him look younger, almost vulnerable, and somehow that was more terrifying than everything else combined. Because men like Dante Moretti didn't smile. They didn't buy dinner for struggling waitresses. They didn't promise safety while simultaneously radiating danger. And they definitely didn't look at nobody girls like me as if we were treasures they intended to possess. The SUV pulled away from the curb, and I watched Dante's figure recede into the misty night, until the city swallowed him whole. My wrist still burned where he'd gripped it. My hand tingled where he'd held it. My face felt hot where he'd touched my chin. I'd walked into Aurelia that evening expecting another forgettable shift, another night of invisible service and meager tips. Instead, I'd poured water for a monster. And now, as Marco navigated through streets that grew progressively darker and more dangerous, I realized with crystal clarity that my life had just been divided into two distinct parts, before Dante Moretti and after. I had no idea which terrified me more, that I'd never see him again, or that his promise would come true. The SUV's headlights cut through the darkness like knives, and somewhere in the city behind us, I imagined those coal-black eyes still watching, still cataloging, still deciding exactly what he planned to do with the waitress who'd made the mistake of pouring his water. I never made it home that night, not in the way I'd expected anyway. Marco didn't speak during the drive. He navigated the SUV through streets I recognized, then into neighborhoods I'd never dared enter even in daylight. The silence pressed against me, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers clearing away mist. I should have been terrified. Every self-preservation instinct I possessed screamed that I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Instead, I felt oddly calm, cocooned in leather and tinted glass, watching the city transform from glittering downtown to industrial wasteland. "This isn't the way to my apartment," I said finally, my voice too loud in the quiet. Marco's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Change of plans." "What?" Ice flooded my veins. "No. Take me home, now." "Can't do that, Miss Hartley." His voice was gravel and smoke, surprisingly gentle for a man built like a concrete wall. "Boss's orders." "I don't care about your boss's orders." Panic clawed up my throat. I reached for the door handle, locked. Of course it was locked. "Let me out. Let me out right now, or I swear I'll—" "You'll what?" Marco asked, not unkindly. "Jump from a moving vehicle? Get yourself killed in a neighborhood where they'd step over your body without calling the cops?" He sighed, long and weary. "Mr. Moretti anticipated you'd react poorly, asked me to give you this." He handed back a phone, sleek, expensive, nothing like my cracked 5-year-old model. The screen glowed to life at my touch, showing a single unsaved number and a text message. "Don't be afraid. You're not in danger. I need to speak with you tonight, something that can't wait. Marco is bringing you somewhere safe. Trust me, Emma. Just this once." "I don't trust him," I said, but my hands had stopped shaking. "I don't know him." "No," Marco agreed. "You don't. But you should know Mr. Moretti doesn't make promises lightly. If he says you're safe, you're safe. Safer than you'd be in that apartment with a broken lock and neighbors who wouldn't hear you scream." My head snapped up. "How do you—" "We know everything, Miss Hartley." He said it matter-of-factly, without menace. "It's how we stay alive." The SUV turned down a narrow road lined with warehouses, their windows dark and empty like gouged-out eyes. My stomach clenched. This was it. This was where girls disappeared, where bodies turned up weeks later if they turned up at all. But then the warehouses gave way to a gated community I'd only seen in magazines. Massive estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates, the kind of wealth that didn't advertise itself because it didn't need to. Marco pulled up to a gate that swung open silently at our approach, revealing a long driveway flanked by manicured gardens. The house at the end was more compound than home. Modern architecture of glass and steel, 3 stories tall, lit from within by warm golden light that spilled onto the wet driveway. It looked like something from an architectural digest, beautiful and cold and completely impersonal. Marco opened my door. I climbed out on legs that felt disconnected from my body, clutching the borrowed phone like a lifeline. Rain had started again, light and cold against my skin. "This way." He gestured toward the entrance where another guard stood, earpiece visible, hand resting casually near his hip, where I was certain a weapon waited. "Mr. Moretti is in his study." I followed because what else could I do? Run? I wouldn't make it past the gate. Scream? Who would hear me in this fortress of silence and money? The interior was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive everything, From the marble floors to the abstract art on the walls, to the crystal chandelier that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. But underneath the perfection, I noticed details that humanized the space. A book left open on the hall table, reading glasses folded beside it, a leather jacket draped over a chair. The faint scent of coffee and something sweeter, vanilla maybe. Someone lived here, really lived here, not just existed in a showroom. Marco led me up a curved staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with closed doors, stopping finally at one made of dark wood with brass hardware. He knocked twice, paused, then opened it. "Miss Hartley, sir." "Thank you, Marco. That'll be all." Dante's voice pulled me forward before I'd consciously decided to move. The study was smaller than I'd expected, more intimate, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves stuffed with volumes that actually looked read, a massive desk scattered with papers and laptops, a leather sofa near a fireplace where flames danced and crackled. The warmth hit me immediately, chasing away the chill from outside. He stood by the fire, still in his suit, but with the jacket removed, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and decorated with more of that dark ink I'd glimpsed earlier. He'd loosened his tie, and something about that small concession to comfort made him seem more human, more dangerous, because humans you could relate to, could sympathize with, could be fooled by. "You came," he said, turning to face me fully. Relief flickered across his features before he locked it down. "Good." I didn't have much choice. The words came out sharper than I'd intended, fear transmuting into anger now that I stood in relative safety. "You basically kidnapped me. I gave you a ride." He moved to a sidebar, poured amber liquid into 2 glasses. "There's a difference. You had your driver bring me to your home against my will. That's kidnapping. Technically, you agreed to accept transportation." He offered me one of the glasses. When I didn't take it, he set it on the desk. "But I understand your anger. It wasn't my intention to frighten you." "Then what was your intention?" I demanded, wrapping my arms around myself. The borrowed dress suddenly felt too thin, too revealing, too everything. "Why am I here?" Dante studied me for a long moment, and I saw calculation behind those black eyes, weighing exactly how much truth to share. "Because 4 hours ago someone tried to kill me." The words hung in the air between us, impossible and perfectly believable all at once. "What does that have to do with me?" My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Everything." He drained his glass in one swallow, set it down with controlled precision. "The attempt happened at Aurelia. They poisoned the wine I'd ordered. Good vintage, hard to trace. If I'd been dining with my usual associates, if I'd been distracted..." He trailed off, jaw tightening. "But I wasn't distracted. I was watching you." My heart hammered against my ribs. So I sent the wine back, ordered water instead." His gaze locked onto mine, intense enough to burn. "You brought that water, Emma. You served me. Anyone watching would have seen us together, would have seen me speak to you, touch you, feed you." Understanding crashed over me like ice water. "They think I'm important to you, yes." No hesitation, no comfort. Just brutal truth, which means you're in danger. The kind that doesn't end with a warning. Serious danger. I sank onto the sofa before my legs gave out. The leather was cool against my bare thighs, grounding me in reality, even as the world tilted sideways. This is insane. I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I'm not part of your world. You are now. He crouched in front of me, bringing us eye level, close enough that I could see flecks of bronze in those coal-black irises. The moment we were seen together, you became a target. I won't apologize for that because I'm not sorry. But I will keep you safe. By bringing me here, by making me disappear. Hysteria bubbled up in my throat. My roommate will call the police. People will look for me. Your roommate Clara is being told you had a family emergency. Your shifts at both restaurants are covered for the next week. He said it so calmly, as if rearranging someone's entire life was something he did every Tuesday. No one is looking for you, Emma, because as far as the world knows, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You can't do this. But even as I said it, I knew he could. He had. You can't just... Keep me here. I can, and I will, until I've eliminated the threat. His hand lifted, hovering near my face like he wanted to touch me but was holding himself back. I know this is terrifying. I know you don't understand. But I need you to trust that keeping you here, with me, is the only way to ensure you survive the next few days. Days? The word came out strangled. Maybe longer. He stood, putting distance between us, and I hated that I immediately felt colder without his proximity. My enemies are bold but not stupid. They'll wait, watch, try to figure out who you are and what you mean to me. When they realize you're nobody, "Thanks," I muttered. "They'll either lose interest or try to use you as bait." He continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Either way, you're vulnerable. Here, you're protected. 24-hour security, food, safety, everything you need. Except freedom. Freedom." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you were free before tonight? Scraping by on tips, skipping meals, walking home through dangerous neighborhoods because you can't afford cab fare? That's not freedom, Emma. That's survival. And barely." The accuracy of his assessment stung worse than any insult. "It was my life. My choice. And now you have different choices." He walked back to the sidebar, refilled his glass. "You can stay here, safe and fed, until this blows over. Or you can leave right now, take your chances on the street, and see how long you last before my enemies, or someone else's, decide you're easy prey. That's not a choice. That's coercion. Welcome to my world." He raised his glass in a mock toast. "Nothing is ever really a choice. Just varying degrees of consequence." I wanted to hate him, wanted to stand up, demand he release me, threaten legal action or police involvement or anything that would give me back some semblance of control. But exhaustion crashed over me like a wave, not just from tonight, but from months of struggling, barely surviving, trying so desperately hard to keep my head above water, only to sink a little deeper every day. And here was this man, this dangerous, powerful, terrifying man, offering me safety, demanding I accept it whether I wanted to or not. "Why do you care?" I asked finally, the fight draining out of me. "You don't know me. Why go through all this trouble for a waitress you met once?" Dante was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I don't know." He said it softly, almost to himself. "I saw you through that screen, and something in my chest just stopped. Reset. Like my entire world had been waiting for that exact moment." He looked at me, and the vulnerability in his expression made my breath catch. "I can't explain it rationally. I've built an empire on logic and calculation. But this? You? There's no logic here. Just certainty. Certainty of what? That you're mine to protect now." The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. "Whether you accept it or not, whether you fight me or surrender, the outcome is the same. You belong under my protection, and I will burn down anyone who tries to take you from me." The fireplace crackled, filling the silence that followed his declaration. I should have been planning escape routes, memorizing the house layout, figuring out how to contact authorities. Instead, I found myself studying the way firelight painted shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles and that jagged scar through his eyebrow. "I need to call my roommate," I said finally. "She'll worry. Tomorrow." He set his glass down, rolled his shoulders like he carried the weight of mountains. "It's late. You're exhausted. Marco will show you to your room. It has everything you need, including clothes that should fit. Sleep, Emma. We'll discuss details in the morning." "Just like that? You give orders and expect me to follow?" "Yes. No apology, no pretense. That's exactly what I expect." He moved toward the door, but I stood, blocking his path. Up close like this, I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. He towered over me, all controlled power and barely leashed danger, and something reckless inside me decided to push. What if I refuse? What if I make this difficult? His hand came up, fingers curling under my chin, tilting my face up further. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, featherlight, setting every nerve ending on fire. "Then you make it difficult," he murmured, his voice dropping to gravel. "Fight me, Emma. Resist. I'll enjoy watching you try. You're insane, I breathed. But I didn't pull away. Probably. His smile was all teeth and shadows. But you're safe. And tonight, that's all that matters. He stepped around me, called for Marco, and just like that, the moment shattered. I was ushered down more hallways, up another flight of stairs, into a bedroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel. King-sized bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, attached bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, walk-in closet stocked with clothes in exactly my size. How? I asked Marco, gesturing at the closet. Mr. Moretti is thorough, was all he said. There's food in the mini fridge if you're hungry. Don't try the windows. They're alarmed. Don't try the door after I leave. It locks automatically. Any problems, press the call button by the bed. Someone will come immediately. I'm a prisoner, I stated flatly. You're protected, Marco corrected. There's a difference. Sleep well, Miss Hartley. The door closed with a soft click. I stood alone in luxury that felt like a cage, surrounded by expensive things I'd never asked for. Safety I hadn't wanted but desperately needed. I should have been planning escape. Instead, I drew a bath, sank into water hot enough to sting, and tried to process the fact that my entire life had changed in the span of hours. Dante Moretti, crime lord, killer, monster by reputation, had decided I was his to protect. And the most terrifying part? Some small, desperate part of me was grateful. I'd been drowning for so long, struggling to keep my head above water. One bad day away from complete collapse. Now someone had thrown me a life preserver, even if that someone was exactly the kind of man I should have been running from. The water grew cold around me. I climbed out, dried off with towels softer than anything I'd ever owned, and found pajamas laid out on the bed. Silk, expensive, perfectly my size. Of course they were. I slipped between sheets that felt like clouds and stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain against windows I couldn't open. In a house I couldn't leave, under the protection of a man who'd looked at me like I was treasure worth killing for. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion won, pulling me under into dreams of coal black eyes and promises whispered in the dark. Of danger and safety wrapped so tightly together, I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Somewhere in the house below, Dante Moretti planned his next move in whatever deadly game he played, and I was a piece on his board now, whether I'd agreed to play or not. The last thought I had before unconsciousness claimed me completely was simple and damning. I didn't want to leave. Morning light filtered through sheer curtains I didn't remember closing, painting the unfamiliar room in shades of gold and cream. For one disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back. The restaurant, Dante, the ride through rain-soaked streets to this gilded prison. I sat up, my body protesting. The silk pajamas had twisted around me during the night, and my hair hung in tangled waves down my back. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. I'd slept nearly 12 hours, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep I hadn't experienced in months. Maybe years. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Miss Hartley? A woman's voice, accented and warm. May I come in? I pulled the sheets higher. Yes? The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s, silver threading through dark hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore simple black pants and a white blouse, carried a tray that smelled like heaven, coffee, fresh bread, something sweet and buttery. Good morning. I'm Teresa, Mr. Moretti's housekeeper. She set the tray on the desk near the window, began opening curtains properly. Sunlight flooded the room, revealing details I'd missed in last night's exhaustion. Crown molding, hardwood floors, fresh flowers in a crystal vase. I've brought breakfast. Mr. Moretti asked that you join him in the garden when you're ready, but there's no rush. Take your time. The garden? I echoed stupidly. Yes, miss. Through the kitchen, out the back. She smiled, and the expression softened her entire face. You'll find clothes in the closet. Everything should fit. If you need anything at all, just press the call button. She left before I could formulate questions, closing the door with the same soft click as last night. I stared at the breakfast tray, fresh croissants, fruit cut into perfect pieces, coffee in a delicate china cup with real cream. My stomach growled traitorously. I ate. God help me, I devoured every bite, savoring tastes I'd denied myself for so long. The coffee was perfect, hot and strong, and exactly how I liked it. How did he know? How could he possibly know? Because he knows everything about you. A voice whispered in my head. He's made it his business to know. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. I showered in the palatial bathroom, used products that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and tried not to think about how good it felt to be clean and warm and full. The closet offered dozens of options. Designer labels I recognized from magazines. Everything still tagged and in my exact size. I chose jeans that fit like they'd been tailored for me, a soft cashmere sweater in deep green, and boots that were broken in enough to be comfortable, but new enough to lack any real wear. Looking at myself in the full-length mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Clean, fed, dressed in clothes that actually fit, I looked almost normal. Almost like I belonged in a place like this. The illusion shattered the moment I remembered I was a prisoner here. Finding the garden proved easier than expected. The house revealed itself gradually as I descended stairs and wandered hallways, more lived in than I'd thought, with personal touches scattered throughout. Photographs in simple frames showing a younger Dante with people who shared his dark features. A woman's laugh echoing from somewhere deeper in the house, the smell of something baking. The kitchen was massive, all stainless steel and marble, where Teresa worked at the stove. She smiled when she saw me, gestured toward French doors that stood open to the morning air. He's just outside, miss. Been waiting since 7. Waiting. For me. The thought made my pulse quicken in ways I refused to examine. The garden was nothing like I'd expected from a crime lord's home. No severe geometrical hedges or imposing statuary. Instead, it sprawled in organized chaos, rose bushes heavy with blooms despite the late season, a small fountain gurgling peacefully, stone pathways winding between flower beds. And at the center, a wrought iron table where Dante sat with a laptop, coffee cup, and several phones arranged within easy reach. He looked up at my approach, and I watched something in his expression shift. Calculation to something warmer, though no less intense. Emma, you slept well? He stood, pulled out a chair. Always the gentleman, even while holding me captive. Surprisingly, I sat because standing felt confrontational, and I needed to choose my battles carefully. Nice prison you've got here. Guest quarters, he corrected, but amusement flickered in his eyes. There's a difference. Guests can leave. So can you. In time. He settled back into his seat, studying me with that unnerving intensity. You look better. Healthier. One night of actual sleep and real food will do that. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Must be nice. Being able to afford basic necessities. It is. No apology. No false modesty. Which is why I intend to ensure you never lack them again. I don't need a savior. No, he agreed. You need protection. There's a difference. He pushed one of the phones toward me. Your roommate called 3 times this morning. I think you should speak with her. I grabbed the phone like a lifeline, Clara's name glowing on the screen. My finger hovered over the call button, then stopped. You're listening, aren't you? To whatever I say? Yes. Again, that brutal honesty. But I won't interfere unless you say something foolish like your actual location or a request for help. Clara thinks you're staying with an aunt in Connecticut who's recovering from surgery. Keep the story consistent. I don't have an aunt in Connecticut. You do now. He leaned back, sipped his coffee. Her name is Margaret. She's 63, fell and broke her hip. You're helping with her recovery for the next week or 2. Details are on the phone under notes if you need to reference them. The casual efficiency of the lie took my breath away. He'd constructed an entire fabrication, complete with details, just to explain my disappearance. You've done this before. I've done many things before. His gaze held mine. Make the call, Emma. Reassure your friend. The sooner you cooperate, the sooner this becomes easier for everyone. I wanted to refuse out of pure spite. But Clara would be worried. and taking my anger out on her wasn't fair. I dialed, pressed the phone to my ear, and listened to it ring once before her familiar voice answered. Emma. Oh my God, finally. Are you okay? I'm fine, Clara. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. Things have been crazy. Your manager called from Aurelia saying you had a family emergency? But you don't have family, Em. I was freaking out. The lie tasted like ash on my tongue. I do, actually. An aunt I haven't seen in years, Margaret. She reached out. She fell and broke her hip. Needed help. I couldn't say no. Connecticut? That's so far. When are you coming back? Dante watched me, expression unreadable as I recited the lies he'd prepared. Week or two, depending on her recovery. I'm really sorry. I know this leaves you with rent. Don't worry about rent, Clara interrupted. Seriously, Em, I'm just glad you're okay. You sounded so stressed lately. Maybe this break is good for you. Change of scenery and all that. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Yeah, maybe. We talked for a few more minutes, Clara chattering about work and her new boyfriend. Normal life continuing without me. When we finally hung up, I set the phone down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it across the garden. Well done, Dante said quietly. I know that wasn't easy. You've made me a liar. The accusation hung between us. To my best friend. I've kept you alive. He closed his laptop, gave me his full attention. Clara will be fine. You'll see her again soon. But right now, the people who tried to kill me are looking for leverage, and you became that leverage the moment we were seen together. So this is my life now, hiding in your house, lying to everyone I know, waiting for you to decide when it's safe. For now, yes, he poured coffee from a carafe into a second cup, added cream without asking. Of course he knew how I took it. But Emma, I'm not asking you to sit idle. I'm asking you to let me protect you while I handle the threat. Handle. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. That's a nice word for murder. Sometimes. He didn't flinch from the accusation. Sometimes it means negotiation, or leverage, or strategic repositioning. My world isn't as simple as you think. Violence is a tool, not the only tool. But you'll use it if necessary. Without hesitation. Those coal black eyes held mine, unflinching. To protect what's mine, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm not yours, I said. But the protest sounded weak even to me. You keep saying that. He leaned forward, and the movement brought him close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the shadow of stubble he hadn't shaved yet. As if repetition will make it true. But we both know better, don't we, Emma? My breath caught. You're delusional. Maybe. His hand moved, fingers brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, the touch deliberate and possessive. Or maybe I just see clearly what you're afraid to acknowledge. I should have pulled away, should have slapped his hand, stood up, demanded distance. Instead, I sat frozen, caught in the gravity well of his presence like a planet trapped in orbit around a star. What do you want from me? The question came out barely above a whisper. Everything. No hesitation, no pretty lies. Your trust eventually, your acceptance. Your willingness to let me care for you the way you deserve. His thumb traced my jawline, and heat followed the path of his touch. But I'm patient, Emma. I've built an empire on patience. I can wait for you to understand. Understand what? That this, he gestured between us, was inevitable from the moment you walked around that screen. You felt it too. Don't lie and tell me you didn't. I had felt it. That inexplicable pull. The sense that something fundamental had shifted in the universe, but acknowledging it meant accepting things I wasn't ready to face. This is insane, I managed. You don't know me, I don't know you. Then let's change that. He withdrew his touch, and I hated how much I immediately missed it. Ask me anything. No lies, no evasion. I'll answer honestly. The offer surprised me. Anything. Anything. I thought carefully, weighing questions. Did you kill someone? Yourself? Not just ordered it done? Yes. No emotion, just fact. 3 people, personally. Dozens more by order. All of them were threats to my family, my organization, or innocent people caught in crossfire. I'm not a good man, Emma. I won't pretend to be. The honesty was brutal and strangely refreshing. Do you regret it? Some of them. The ones where there might have been another way. He paused, considering. But mostly? No. Regret is a luxury I can't afford in this life. I make decisions. I live with consequences. I move forward. How did you become this? I gestured vaguely. A crime lord. Did you choose it? I was born into it. Something shifted in his expression, old pain surfacing briefly before being locked away again. My father ran the organization before me. When he died, the choice was simple: take control or watch everything he built get torn apart by vultures. I was 27. Too young, too angry, too determined to prove myself, but I learned fast, adapted, survived. Do you have siblings? A sister, younger. She's away at university in Europe, far from this life. His voice softened. She's the only person I've ever truly loved. Everything I do, ultimately, is to ensure she stays safe and free to live the life she wants. The admission cracked something open in my chest. He wasn't just a monster. He was a man trying to protect someone he loved, even if his methods were extreme. My turn, he said, before I could ask another question. Why were you working 3 jobs? What are you running from? Fair was fair. Debt. My mom got sick when I was 19, cancer. I dropped out of college to take care of her, used up my savings, maxed out credit cards trying to afford treatment. She died anyway, 6 months later, and left me with nothing but medical bills and an apartment lease I couldn't break. I've been playing catch-up ever since. Understanding flickered in his eyes. No other family? None. It was always just us. The old ache settled in my chest, familiar as breathing. I'm alone. Not anymore. He said it with such finality that arguing seemed pointless. Those debts, they're handled. My head snapped up. What? Your medical debt? Credit cards, student loans, all of it. Paid in full as of this morning. He said it casually, like he'd bought me coffee instead of erasing years of financial burden. You're free of it, Emma. No more drowning. No more choosing between food and electricity. It's done. Shock rendered me temporarily speechless. Then anger flooded in to fill the void. You had no right. That was my responsibility, my burden to carry, and now it's not. He stood, moved around the table to crouch beside my chair, forcing me to meet his eyes. I won't apologize for helping you, for taking away the weight that's been crushing you. You're under my protection now, which means I protect you from everything, including the consequences of an unjust system that profited from your grief. I don't want to owe you. You don't owe me anything. His hands framed my face, holding me gently but inexorably. This isn't a transaction, Emma. I'm not keeping score. I'm taking care of what's mine, the way I should, the way you deserve. Let me. Tears burned behind my eyes, hot and unwelcome. No one had taken care of me in so long. No one had even tried. I'd been alone, struggling, fighting just to survive. And here was this dangerous man offering me everything I desperately needed, but been too proud to ask for. Why? The word broke on a sob I couldn't quite suppress. Why me? I'm nobody special. I'm just, you're everything. He said it with such conviction that I almost believed him. I can't explain it rationally. I just know that the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. Like we've been circling each other our entire lives, waiting for the right moment to collide. That's not real, I whispered. But my hands had come up to grip his wrists, holding him in place rather than pushing him away. That's not how the world works. My world operates on different rules. His thumbs brushed away tears I hadn't realized had fallen. In my world, when I find something rare and precious, I claim it. I protect it. I'd burn down the entire city before I let anything happen to it. The possessiveness should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like safety, like someone finally giving a damn whether I lived or died. I was so tired of fighting alone, so exhausted from years of barely surviving. And here was someone strong enough to carry the weight for both of us, if I'd just let him. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. The words scraped raw from somewhere deep inside. I don't know how to let someone take care of me. Then I'll teach you, He pressed his forehead to mine, and the gesture was unexpectedly tender from a man who'd admitted to killing without remorse. "One day at a time, Emma. You don't have to decide everything right now. Just stay, be safe. Let me handle the threats. The rest we'll figure out together." A phone buzzed. One of his, always within reach. He checked it, and I watched his expression shutter closed, the tender man disappearing behind the crime lord's mask. "I have to deal with something," he said, standing. "Stay in the house today. Marco will be nearby if you need anything. We'll have dinner together tonight. I want to hear more about you, the real you, not just the circumstances that brought you here." "Dante." I stopped him before he could leave. "Those people who tried to kill you. When will you know if I'm safe?" His smile was all teeth and shadows, the predator emerging. "When they're no longer breathing. Shouldn't take more than a few days." He left me sitting in the garden, surrounded by roses and sunshine, in a gilded cage that felt less like imprisonment and more like the first real safety I'd known in years. And the most terrifying part was realizing I didn't want to escape anymore. I wanted to stay. 3 days passed in a strange suspension of reality. 3 days where I existed in Dante's world, but remained separate from it, orbiting at a careful distance while he handled whatever bloody business required his attention. I saw him at meals, breakfast in the garden when weather permitted, dinner in the formal dining room that felt too large for just 2 people. He asked questions about my life, my dreams before everything fell apart, the books I'd loved as a child. I learned he spoke 4 languages, had never been to a public school, and harbored a surprising passion for classical music. We talked, we ate, and I felt the careful distance between us shrinking with each passing hour. But at night, he disappeared into parts of the house I wasn't allowed to enter. Sometimes I heard his voice through walls, sharp with command. Once, I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of cars in the driveway, urgent voices, and Marco's heavy footsteps in the hallway outside my room. I pressed my ear to the door but heard nothing except my own hammering heart. Teresa tried to keep me occupied. Cooking lessons in the massive kitchen, walks through the garden, access to a library that would have made me weep with joy in different circumstances. But restlessness crawled under my skin, made worse by the knowledge that somewhere out there, people were dying because I'd poured water for the wrong man. On the 4th morning, I woke to silence. The house felt different, empty in a way I couldn't quite articulate. I dressed quickly in yoga pants and a sweater. My wardrobe had mysteriously expanded to include workout clothes, pajamas, even formal wear I couldn't imagine having occasion to use. Everything fit perfectly. Everything bore designer labels. It was suffocating and seductive all at once. Teresa wasn't in the kitchen. The coffee pot sat cold and unused. No breakfast tray waiting. I ventured deeper into the house, following instinct more than knowledge, until I found myself in a wing I'd been subtly discouraged from exploring. The door at the end of the hallway stood slightly ajar. I should have turned back, should have returned to my room and waited like the good prisoner I was supposed to be. Instead, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dante's bedroom was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it simultaneously. Massive bed with black sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that screamed expensive taste, but personal items scattered throughout. Books stacked on the nightstand, a photograph of a young woman who shared his features, clothes draped over a chair. The room smelled like him, that intoxicating combination of cologne and danger that made my pulse quicken. Looking for something, I spun to find him in the doorway, and my breath caught. He wore only pajama bottoms, chest bare, revealing the full extent of ink that decorated his torso, elaborate designs that wrapped around his ribs, over his shoulders, down his arms. Not random tattoos, but a cohesive piece of art that told a story I couldn't quite read. His hair was disheveled from sleep, stubble heavy on his jaw, and he looked younger this way. More human, more dangerous because of it. I didn't mean to intrude, I stammered. The house was quiet. I couldn't find Teresa. I sent everyone away for the day. He moved into the room, and I tracked his movements like prey watching a predator. We need to talk, and I prefer to do it without an audience. Is it over? Hope and fear warred in my chest. The threat? It's handled. He stopped a few feet away, studying me with that intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and protected. The men who tried to poison me have been dealt with. Their organization knows that touching what's mine comes with consequences. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees weakened. So, I can go home? Something flickered in his expression. Hurt, quickly masked. Is that what you want? I should have said yes. Should have seized the opportunity to reclaim my life, such as it was. Instead, I found myself hesitating, and that hesitation told us both everything. I don't know, I admitted finally. I should want to leave, should be desperate to get back to my apartment, my jobs, my life. But he took a step closer, then another, eating up the distance between us. But I can't remember the last time I felt safe, I whispered. The last time someone cared whether I ate or slept or survived another day. The last time I didn't have to fight for every single thing I needed. And I hate that it took being kidnapped by a crime lord to experience that. You weren't kidnapped. His hand came up, fingers threading through my hair with surprising gentleness. You were claimed. There's a difference. Is there? I should have stepped back, but my body refused to cooperate. Because from where I'm standing, you made a decision about my life without consulting me. Yes. No apology, no justification. I did. Because the alternative was letting you die, and that was never an option. Not from the moment you walked around that screen, shaking and scared and trying so hard to be invisible. Why? The question I'd asked before, but this time demanding a real answer. Don't give me some line about fate or destiny. Tell me the truth. He was quiet for a long moment, and I watched emotions flicker across his face. Calculation, vulnerability, determination. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw in a way I'd never heard. My mother, he said quietly. You remind me of her. Not in appearance, but in spirit. She was always kind, always trying to take care of everyone even when she had nothing herself. My father's world destroyed her slowly. The violence, the fear, the constant danger. She died when I was 16, killed by men trying to get to him. I found her body. My hand went to my mouth, horror flooding through me. I swore I'd never let that happen again. He continued, his gaze distant, lost in memory. That I'd be strong enough, ruthless enough to protect everyone under my care. My sister got out, got away to a normal life. But when I saw you, struggling, vulnerable, one bad break away from disaster, something in me just knew. Knew I had to protect you the way I couldn't protect her. I'm not your mother, I said softly. I'm not your responsibility, no. His focus snapped back to me, and the intensity in those coal black eyes made my breath catch. You're not. You're something else entirely, something I didn't know I was looking for until I found it. Dante, I'm in love with you. The words fell between us like stones into still water, creating ripples that would change everything. I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other, but I've spent my entire adult life reading people, understanding motivations, seeing through lies and manipulations. And when I look at you, I see home, safety. Everything I've never allowed myself to want because wanting things makes you vulnerable. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might break free. You can't love me. You don't know me. I know you're kind even when the world has given you every reason to be cruel. I know you go hungry so you can pay your bills on time because your word matters to you. I know you loved your mother enough to sacrifice your entire future trying to save her. I know you're scared right now, but standing here anyway because you're braver than you think. He cupped my face between his hands, and I felt the slight tremor in his fingers. I know that every minute you're not near me feels wrong, like part of me is missing. And I know that I'd burn the world to ashes before I let anyone hurt you. That's not love, I whispered, but tears were streaming down my face. That's obsession. Maybe it's both. His thumbs brushed away my tears. Maybe in my world they're the same thing. But Emma, I'm giving you a choice now. A real one. You can walk out that door, and Marco will drive you anywhere you want to go. Your apartment, your life, everything as it was. Minus the debt. That's gone regardless. won't stop you, won't follow you, won't interfere. And the alternative, you stay. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You stay here with me, and let me show you what it means to be treasured. Protected. Loved the way you deserve. No more struggling, no more fear, no more fighting alone. Just safety and comfort, and someone who would die before letting harm come to you. You're asking me to give up everything. I breathed. I'm asking you to trade a life of survival for a life of living. He pressed his forehead to mine, and the gesture felt sacred somehow. I'm asking you to be selfish, Emma. For once in your life, choose what you want, instead of what you think you should want. What did I want? The question hung in the air between us, demanding an answer I wasn't sure I was brave enough to give. I wanted safety. Yes, but I'd had safety these past few days. I wanted someone to care whether I lived or died. But Dante had proven he cared, perhaps too much. What I wanted, I realized with startling clarity, was him. This dangerous, complicated, violent man who looked at me like I was something precious, who'd paid off my debts without asking for anything in return, who'd killed to keep me safe and would kill again without hesitation. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt seen in a way I'd never experienced before. If I stay, I said slowly, what does that mean? What am I agreeing to? Everything. His hand slid down to grip my waist, pulling me closer. You're mine, Emma. Completely. Exclusively. I don't share. I don't compromise on this. You stay here, under my protection, in my bed when you're ready. You let me take care of you the way you deserve. And in return, you give me your trust, your honesty, and eventually, your heart. That's not a relationship, I protested weakly. That's ownership. In my world, love is ownership. He said it without shame. When something is mine, I protect it absolutely. I provide for it completely. I defend it ruthlessly. And in return, I expect loyalty, honesty, and the knowledge that you're mine the way I'm yours. You're not mine, I said, but the protest sounded hollow. Aren't I? His smile was dark, possessive. I've thought of nothing but you for 4 days. I've rearranged my entire organization to ensure your safety. I've killed for you, Emma, and I'd kill again without hesitation. If that's not belonging to someone, I don't know what is. He was right, and the realization terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. This powerful, dangerous man had oriented his entire world around keeping me safe. He'd made me his priority, his obsession, his everything. And God help me, I wanted to let him. I'm scared, I admitted, the words barely audible. Scared of what this means, what I'm becoming. I came from nothing, Dante. I'm not equipped for your world. You don't need to be equipped. His lips brushed my forehead, soft and reverent. You just need to trust me to handle it. Let me be strong for both of us, Emma. Let me carry the weight you've been bearing alone for so long. And if I can't, if I'm not built for this kind of life, then we'll figure it out together. His arms wrapped around me, and I let myself sink into his warmth, his strength. But I think you're stronger than you know. You've survived things that would break most people. This? Us? You can handle this. I wanted to believe him, wanted to surrender to the safety he offered, the life where I'd never have to struggle again. But doubt gnawed at me, insidious and persistent. What happens when you get tired of me? I asked against his chest. When the novelty wears off and you realize I'm just an ordinary girl with nothing special to offer? He pulled back, gripped my chin firmly, forced me to meet his eyes. Listen to me very carefully, Emma. I have never wanted anything in my life the way I want you, and what I want, I keep. Forever. There is no getting tired of you, no novelty wearing off. You're mine now, and that doesn't come with an expiration date. The possessiveness should have sent me running. Instead, it settled something deep in my chest, that desperate need to belong somewhere, to someone. I'd been alone so long, fighting for scraps, invisible to everyone who mattered. Dante saw me, really saw me, and he wanted me anyway. Okay, I whispered. His entire body went still. Okay? I'll stay. The words came easier than I'd expected. I'd don't know if this is right or wrong or completely insane, but I'll stay. I'll try. He kissed me. Not the gentle exploratory kiss of new lovers, but something claiming, possessive, branding me as his in a way that left no room for doubt. His hand fisted in my hair, tilting my head back to deepen the kiss, and I melted against him, all my resistance dissolving in the heat of his mouth on mine. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone molten black. "Mine," he growled against my lips. "Say it." "Yours," I breathed and felt something fundamental shift in the universe. "I'm yours." The smile that spread across his face was pure triumph, and something softer, joy, maybe, or relief. "And I'm yours, Emma. Every dark, broken piece of me belongs to you now. I'll protect you, provide for you, worship you the way you deserve. And anyone who tries to take you from me will learn exactly what happens when you threaten what's mine." He swept me into his arms, carried me to his bed, our bed now, I supposed, and laid me down on those black sheets with a reverence that made my throat tight. Then he stretched out beside me, pulled me against his chest, and just held me. "We'll take this at your pace," he murmured into my hair. "I want you. God, I want you. But I can wait until you're ready, until you trust that this is real, that I'm not going anywhere." I should have needed time, should have asked for space to process everything that had happened. Instead, I found my hands exploring the planes of his chest, tracing the ink that decorated his skin, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my palm. "Tell me about your tattoos," I said softly. He did, his voice low and rumbling. Stories of family, of losses, of battles won, and prices paid. Each piece of art marked something significant. His mother's death, his sister's birth, the day he became boss. His body was a map of his life, scars and ink telling the story of how he'd become the man holding me. And as morning light streamed through the windows, painting us both in gold, I realized I'd stopped thinking about escape, stopped mourning the life I'd left behind. Because for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't alone. I belonged somewhere, to someone. And he belonged to me. 6 months later, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of what had become our bedroom, watching snow fall over the city like a blessing. The view never ceased to amaze me, how far I could see from this height, how small the world looked from up here in Dante's fortress. Our fortress, I corrected myself. Because somewhere along the way, his had become ours, and I'd stopped thinking of myself as a prisoner or even a guest. I was home. "You're up early." Dante's voice came from behind me, rough with sleep, arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against the warmth of his chest. He pressed a kiss to my neck, and I leaned into him, marveling at how natural it had become. This ease between us, this comfort. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. "Teresa's hosting that charity dinner tonight, and I'm nervous about meeting more of your associates." "Our associates," he corrected, exactly as I'd corrected myself moments ago. "And they'll adore you. They already do. Vittorio hasn't stopped talking about how you convinced him to donate to that women's shelter. You have a gift, Emma. People trust you." It was true, surprisingly. In the months since I'd chosen to stay, I'd found an unexpected role in Dante's world, not as his mistress or his possession, but as something more nuanced, a bridge between his dark world and legitimate society. The charities I'd suggested we support, the community programs I'd helped establish, the scholarships we'd funded for kids from neighborhoods like the ones I'd grown up in. Dante's money, directed by my conscience, had started making real differences in people's lives. It felt like redemption, somehow. Like I was balancing the scales for the violence that funded our lifestyle. "I got a letter yesterday," I said softly. "From Clara." I felt him tense slightly. Clara had been the hardest part of my new life. Explaining my relationship with Dante, helping her understand why I'd chosen to stay. She'd been angry at first, convinced I'd been brainwashed or coerced. It had taken months of careful conversation, of letting her see that I was genuinely happy, before she'd begun to accept my choice. "What did she say?" "She's engaged, getting married next spring." I turned in his arms, looked up at him. "She wants me to be her maid of honor." Something complicated flickered in his expression. And you want to go. She's my best friend, Dante. My only real friend from before. I have to be there for her. I know. He cupped my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. We'll make it work. Extra security, careful planning. You'll be at her wedding, Emma, I promise. The easy capitulation surprised me, though it probably shouldn't have. Over the past 6 months, Dante had proven time and again that my happiness mattered to him as much as my safety. When I'd expressed interest in returning to school, he'd arranged for private tutors. When I'd mentioned missing my mother's favorite restaurant, he'd bought it and ensured it stayed exactly as I remembered. When I'd cried about my mother's grave being neglected, he'd hired a service to maintain it weekly and had commissioned a beautiful headstone to replace the simple marker I'd been able to afford. Every desire I expressed, he fulfilled. Every need I had, he anticipated. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being cherished. I love you, I said. The words coming easily now. It had taken weeks before I'd been able to say them, terrified of the vulnerability they represented. But Dante had been patient, showing me through actions what his words declared, that his love was steady, unwavering, absolute. And I love you, he replied, like he always did. More than I thought possible, more than is probably healthy. I laughed, rising on my toes to kiss him. Definitely not healthy, but I wouldn't change it. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. The expensive one Dante had given me to replace my ancient model. I grabbed it, smiling at the message from Teresa reminding me about our lunch plans. She'd become something like a mother figure to me, filling a void I hadn't realized I still carried. I need to get ready, I said reluctantly. Meeting Teresa at noon, then that appointment with the wedding planner. Wedding planner? Dante's voice was carefully neutral. I froze. We'd been dancing around the subject for weeks now. The natural progression of our relationship, what it meant, where it was heading. Dante had made his intentions clear from the beginning, but I'd been hesitant to formalize what we had, afraid somehow that marriage would break the spell. For Clara's wedding, I clarified, watching him carefully. She wants help planning. Ah. Disappointment flickered across his face, quickly masked. Of course. I bit my lip, weighing my next words carefully, though I suppose I should start thinking about my own wedding. Eventually. His entire body went still. Emma? I'm not saying now, I continued quickly. I'm not ready yet. But someday, when I finish school, when I feel more secure in this world, someday I'd like to be your wife, Dante. Officially. Not just in practice. The smile that spread across his face was pure sunshine, transforming him from the dangerous crime lord to the man I loved. He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair. Whenever you're ready, he said, voice rough with emotion. A year from now, 5 years from now, 10. I'll wait forever if that's what you need. Not forever, I promised, just a little while longer. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I lost myself in it the way I always did. In 6 months, the hunger between us hadn't diminished. If anything, it had grown stronger. Every touch still felt electric. Every kiss still made my heart race. We'd consummated our relationship weeks after that first conversation in his bedroom, and it had been everything I'd feared and hoped. Intense, overwhelming, tender and possessive all at once. Dante had been patient with my inexperience, teaching me pleasure I'd never imagined, showing me what it meant to be worshipped by someone who loved you. The memory heated my blood even now. If you keep looking at me like that, Dante murmured against my lips, you're going to be very late for lunch. Would that be so terrible? His laugh was low and dangerous. Teresa would have my head, and as terrifying as I am, I'm genuinely afraid of disappointing her. I smiled, extracted myself from his arms with effort. Tonight then, after the dinner. Tonight, he agreed, his eyes tracking my movements as I headed for the bathroom. I'll be counting the minutes. The day passed in a blur of activity. Lunch with Teresa, where we discussed the charity dinner's final details, and she gently probed about when Dante and I might make things official. Shopping with Marco as my ever-present shadow, I'd gotten used to having security, though it had taken time. The wedding planning session where Clara gushed about her fiancé and carefully didn't ask too many questions about my relationship with Dante. By the time evening arrived, I was exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. The charity dinner was held in our home. The house had become a venue for such events. Dante's way of legitimizing his operations while I handled the social aspects he despised. I wore a dress he'd had custom-made, deep emerald green that matched my eyes, and watched him work the room with the same efficiency he brought to everything. But his eyes kept finding mine across the crowd, checking on me, making sure I was comfortable. And every time our gazes met, I felt that same spark that had ignited the moment I'd poured his water 6 months ago. Had it really only been 6 months? It felt like a lifetime. Like the struggling waitress I'd been was someone else entirely, a ghost from a past that no longer haunted me. "You look happy." Vittorio appeared at my elbow, one of Dante's oldest associates and the first to truly accept me. "It's good to see. The boss, he's different with you. Softer." "He's not soft," I protested but smiled. "No," Vittorio agreed. "But he's happy. And in our world, happiness is rare enough to be precious. You're good for him, Emma. Don't let anyone tell you different." The words warmed me more than I'd expected. Acceptance in Dante's world hadn't come easily. There were still those who saw me as a weakness, a liability. But slowly I'd proven I could hold my own, that I understood the rules even if I didn't always agree with them. The dinner wound down around midnight. Guests departed with promises to support our causes, and I watched Dante work his magic, extracting commitments, building alliances, all while maintaining the facade of sophisticated society. He was brilliant at it. Dangerous and calculating, and absolutely brilliant. "Tired?" he asked once we were finally alone, the house quiet except for the cleanup crew Teresa supervised. "Exhausted," I admitted, "but happy. It went well, didn't it?" "Better than well. We raised 3 times our target." He pulled me close, and I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "You're a natural at this, Emma. The way you charmed Castellano into doubling his donation, I'm impressed." "I just told him about the kids the scholarship would help," I said. "People want to do good, Dante. They just need someone to show them how. And you're that someone." He tilted my chin up, kissed me softly. "My conscience. My heart. My better half in every way." "I'm not better," I protested. "Just different." "Different," he agreed. And exactly what I needed without knowing I needed it. We made our way upstairs, leaving the cleaning to others, and I marveled again at how comfortable I'd become with this life. The luxury no longer felt foreign. The danger no longer kept me awake at night. I'd adapted, evolved, become someone who could exist in Dante's world without losing herself. In our bedroom, he undressed me slowly, reverently, treating each reveal of skin like unwrapping a precious gift. We'd made love hundreds of times by now, but it never felt routine. Every touch was still deliberate, every kiss still meaningful. Afterward, tangled in sheets that cost more than my old monthly rent, I felt completely at peace. "I have something for you," Dante said quietly. He reached into his nightstand, pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stuttered. "Dante, it's not what you think. Not yet." He opened the box to reveal a key, simple, silver, elegant. "This is to the safe in my office. Everything I have, everything I am, I'm trusting you with it. Bank accounts, business documents, contingency plans. If something happens to me, you'll know how to access everything. How to protect yourself." Emotion clogged my throat. This wasn't just a key. It was complete trust. Complete vulnerability from a man who'd spent his life trusting no one. "Nothing's going to happen to you," I said fiercely. "Probably not," he agreed. "But in my world, probably isn't certainty. I need to know you'll be taken care of, that you'll be safe no matter what." I took the key, felt its weight in my palm. "Thank you. For trusting me. Emma." He cupped my face, and the love in his eyes made my breath catch. You're the only person I trust completely, the only person I've ever let past my defenses. You own me, heart and soul. This key is just acknowledgement of what's already true." I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into it: gratitude, love, desire, commitment. When we finally broke apart, I knew with absolute certainty that this was where I belonged, not because he'd taken me, not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I'd chosen it, chosen him, chosen us. "I want to visit my mother's grave tomorrow," I said softly. "Will you come with me?" "Of course." No hesitation, no questions. "Whatever you need." We fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since my mother's death, I dreamed of the future instead of the past. I dreamed of finishing my degree, of making real differences in people's lives, of Clara's wedding where I'd stand as maid of honor, of my own wedding someday when I was ready to make this official. I dreamed of children, mine and Dante's, growing up safe and loved in ways neither of us had been, of building something better from the ashes of what we'd survived. Morning came too early, but I woke to coffee already brewing. Dante dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suits. Marco waited downstairs with the car, and we drove through the city to the cemetery where my mother rested. The grave was beautiful now, the headstone Dante had commissioned. Flowers always fresh, grass meticulously maintained. I knelt beside it, traced my fingers over her name. "Hi, Mom," I whispered. "I know I haven't visited in a while. Things have been complicated, but good, really good." I felt Dante's hand on my shoulder, drawing strength from his presence. "I met someone. He's not what you would have expected from me, not what I expected either. But he loves me, Mom, really loves me, and he takes care of me the way you always wanted someone to." Dante knelt beside me, silent and supportive. I leaned against him, grateful for his warmth. "I'm happy," I continued. "For the first time since you died, I'm genuinely happy. I'm going back to school. I'm helping people. I'm building a life worth living. I think you'd be proud of me. I hope you would be." We stayed for a while, until the cold drove us back to the car. In the back seat, Dante pulled me close. "She would be proud," he said quietly. "How could she not be? You're extraordinary, Emma." "I'm ordinary," I corrected. "I just got lucky." "No," his arms tightened around me. "I'm the one who got lucky. The night you walked around that screen, my entire world changed. You saved me, Emma, just as much as I saved you." Maybe he was right. Maybe we'd saved each other, him from a life of violence without purpose, me from a life of struggle without hope. Maybe that's what love was, really. Two broken people putting each other back together, creating something stronger than either could be alone. The drive home was quiet, comfortable. We had dinner planned with his sister Lucia, who was visiting from Europe. She'd been skeptical of me at first, protective of her brother in ways I understood, but over months of careful relationship building, we'd become friends. She saw that I genuinely loved Dante, that I wasn't using him or afraid of him, that I'd chosen this life freely. That night, surrounded by the people who'd become my family, I looked around the table and felt overwhelming gratitude for the second chance I'd been given, for the man who'd seen me when I was invisible to everyone else, for the life we were building together, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. After Lucia left, Dante and I returned to our room. He pulled me onto the balcony despite the cold, wrapped me in his coat, and we stood looking out over the city. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "That I want to marry you," he said simply. "Not someday. Not eventually. Soon. As soon as you're ready. I want you to be my wife officially, legally. I want everyone to know you're mine, and I'm yours." My heart raced, but this time not from fear, from anticipation, from knowing that I was ready, even if I'd thought I needed more time. "Ask me," I whispered. He turned me to face him, and even in the dim light, I could see the emotion in his eyes. He dropped to one knee right there on the balcony, pulled out a ring I hadn't known he'd been carrying, a stunning diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows across the stone. "Emma Hartley," he said, voice rough. "You walked into my life by accident and changed everything. You made me want to be better, to build something meaningful instead of just surviving. You gave me hope when I'd forgotten what hope felt like. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my everything for the rest of our lives? Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling. Yes. God, yes. 1,000 times, yes. He slid the ring onto my finger. Perfect fit, of course, and stood, kissing me deeply. We stayed on the balcony long after the cold became uncomfortable, holding each other, planning a future that 6 months ago I couldn't have imagined. I'd sat alone at a restaurant waiting to serve a Mafia boss, and that night my entire life had changed. I'd been terrified, resistant, certain I was making a terrible mistake, but Dante had been patient. He'd shown me what it meant to be loved completely, protected absolutely, cherished beyond measure. He'd given me a life worth living, and I'd given him my heart in return. The snow fell harder, coating the city in white, and I thought about the girl I'd been, struggling, alone, invisible. She felt like a distant memory now, someone I'd been in another lifetime. That girl had died the night she agreed to stay, and from her ashes had risen someone new. Someone stronger, happier, more complete. Someone loved. Cold? Dante asked, feeling me shiver. A little, I admitted, but I don't want to go inside yet. Then we won't. He held me tighter, his warmth seeping into me. We'll stay here as long as you want. I'd stand in a blizzard if it made you happy. I believed him. That was the incredible part. I actually believed him. In 6 months, he'd proven over and over that my happiness was his priority, my safety, his obsession, my love his treasure. Take me inside, I said finally, and show me again why I agreed to marry you. His laugh was low and warm. It would be my pleasure. We went inside, leaving the cold behind, and he spent the rest of the night proving with actions what his words had declared, that I was his world, his everything, the reason he woke up every morning. And when I fell asleep in his arms, my ring catching the moonlight, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice, not because he was powerful or wealthy or could provide for me, but because he loved me with a ferocity that matched my own, because he'd turned his darkness into light for me, because he'd given me not just safety, but purpose. I'd come to his restaurant as a nobody waitress, invisible and struggling. I'd left as someone cherished, protected, loved beyond measure. The journey between those 2 points had been terrifying and confusing, and absolutely perfect. Some people might say I'd been brainwashed, that Stockholm Syndrome had made me love my captor. But they didn't understand. I hadn't fallen for Dante because he'd kept me. I'd fallen for him because he'd seen me, really seen me, in all my broken, struggling glory, and decided I was worth fighting for. He'd saved me, yes, but I'd saved him too, and together, we'd built something neither of us could have created alone. A love forged in darkness but burning bright enough to light the way forward. Forever.